Hello everyone, greetings from the Zolder circuit. Yes, we are here in Belgium. It's dry once again, but a bit more chilly than yesterday. But we're expecting a hot race today, that's for sure. And now, of course, it's time for the qualifying. And all eyes are on this man from South Africa, Kelvin van der Linde. He's already sat in the car, focused, and I'm pretty sure he's ready. There we see him. He's always in the good spirits. And yeah, of course, he's going to push it to the limits, that's for sure. But then again, let's not forget everyone else's too. So let's expect a very exciting qualifying, and here's your commentator. Enjoy.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Morning, everybody. Chris Hartley here in the comms box to talk you through this second qualifying session of the weekend. As Verena quite rightly says, the man to beat, Kelvin van der Linde, the first driver this season to get 2 poles and now 2 race victories. Nico Muller will be going guns blazing today. He was a little bit unlucky yesterday, got caught up in a lap 1 incident that took out several drivers. He got through it, but not before losing a lot of places and getting into a huge sideways moment. He eventually fought back to get a championship point, but the last 3 races have not gone the way he would have liked after what was a strong second place finish in round 2 at Monza. Lucas Auer there, who got into the points yesterday, he was one of the drivers on the podium at this circuit last year, albeit in a very different type of car and a very different brand as well. He was racing with BMW on his return to DTM after a sabbatical last season, but back with Mercedes where he started his DTM career. And there is another Mercedes driver, Philip Ellis, who's been mighty impressive so far this season. 8th place finish for Philip yesterday. He did get up to 5th place at one point with a daring move under braking that got him 2 positions past Esteban Moot and Max Gotts, but in the end just slipped back a little bit. It was very evenly matched in the battle for 4th place. He had 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th all together, but there weren't too many overtaking manoeuvres in that second half of the race, except from the young 19-year-old Esteban Moot, who did an excellent job to gain some places and pick up his best result of the season in the T3 Motorsport Lamborghini with a 6th place finish. So Lucas Auer, the multiple DTM race winner, looking to head out onto the pit lane apron shortly. There's Timo Glock, who had to start from the very back of the grid yesterday, so he'll be hoping for a better qualifying this time around. News to bring you is that, unfortunately, we have lost from the day Arjun Maini. So he was one of the drivers involved in that collision yesterday with Daniel Hunkedea. Liam Lawson, driver 2nd in the championship, also getting caught out in all of that. And unfortunately, the news is that they're not going to be able to repair Arjun's Mercedes in time to get him out, not just for qualifying, but we're hearing he's not going to be involved in the race either. So that's a huge, huge shame for Arjun. It was a big moment, that, and we had an interview with Verena speaking to Daniel Hunkedea after the incident, once he got back to the pits during the race yesterday. And in complete fairness to Danny, he held his hands up and said, look, you know, I made a mistake, I think it was my fault. And subsequently, he has been given a 10-place grid penalty. So wherever he qualifies today, you've got to add 10 positions onto where he'll start the race. The best he's going to be is 10th on the grid, even if he were to qualify on pole position in the Group M Racing Mercedes. So yesterday, the top 3 really pulled away from everybody else. There was a huge gap from 3rd to 4th of around about 20 seconds. And the top 3 involved in the fight were Kelvin van der Linde, Mike Rockenfeller, his Abt Sportsline teammate, and following the 2 Audis and pushing them hard all the way to the flag, really, was Alex Albon in the Ferrari, who got his joint best result of the season with a 2nd, 3rd place finish, but it's his best finish on track of the season because he crossed the line in 3rd, whereas at Monza he crossed the line 4th and then subsequently was promoted into a podium position. So really good drive from Alex, who picked up a grid penalty, which dropped him from 4th to 9th after a moment which was in free practice the day before, where he was judged to have been speeding under one of the red flags, and that was then added to his qualifying start. So he didn't agree with it, but he had to come from 9th, and he did a very solid job to get into the top 3. There was no stopping Kelvin van der Linde, though. Didn't win by much, but with his teammate Mike Rockenfeller as a rear gunner, fending off the Ferrari, it was a relatively comfortable 2nd victory of the season, and with the 25 points he scored for that and the 3 points he got for qualifying on pole position, it was a full house 28 points. And his nearest rival in the championship, Liam Lawson, didn't score any, so he extended his lead from 4 points in the championship at the start of the weekend. And now on 97 points, he is 32 ahead of Liam Lawson. So 97 points for Kelvin van der Linde, the South African. Liam Lawson, the New Zealander, on 65, still second, but having lost that ground. Max Gotts in third in the championship on 54 points. He got into the points yesterday as well, having qualified on the front row. Philip Ellis, 52 points in fourth place. He's just slipped back behind Max Gotts, with Alex Albon in fifth still, but closer now on 46 points. Mike Rockenfeller's moved up to sixth in the championship on 44 points. Marco Vittman 7th on 39, Lucas Auer 29 points in 8th, 28 points for Sheldon van der Linde in 9th, and running at the top 10 in the points coming into this session on 26 points, it's Nico Muller. So that's the way the drivers' standings line up as they go out for build-up laps in this 20-minute qualifying session. It's, as Verena said, a little bit cooler than it was yesterday, 16 degrees, a bit breezy out there as well. The track temperature 19 degrees, so it's cooler conditions than it was for the qualifying session, which was around about the same time yesterday. This one's slightly later, but only by 10 minutes or so. And there is Max Buch heading out onto the circuit. Great to have the fans back at Zolder as well as the sun starts to break through. And they will be, no doubt, cheering on the Belgian driver Esteban Buch, this exciting talent, this 19-year-old who's been rapid in every session, really. He's been consistently picking up championship points. He's been a very good qualifier by and large, and with the T3 Motorsport Lamborghini, looks a good prospect. So Nico Muller on board with him now as he builds up speed. We'll have the DTM Junior Championship new for this year as well for the younger drivers. That involves Liam Lawson, Sheldon van der Linde, Esteban Buch and Sophia Flores. That's been led comfortably by Liam Lawson. He's got 61 points. Sheldon van der Linde is second on 24 after yesterday's results. In the Manufacturer Cup, Mercedes AMG leads on their return to DTM. 171 points, only just clear of Audi, have got 167, so only 4 points between them. Ferrari third on 111 points. Teams Championship, it's Team Abt Sportsline, 141 points, 30 clear of Red Bull AlphaTauri, who've got 111, and Mercedes AMG Team Winward are third on 81 points in the team standings. So, will this one live up to yesterday's qualifying, because the track yesterday started a little bit damp, dried and dried and dried throughout the course of the session, and we had, I don't know, 7, 8 different drivers provisionally on pole position. The times kept changing, kept coming down. It's a really, really close session. I've had lots of close sessions this year. I've had just the one qualifying session where the gap from first to second was more than 1/10 of a second. But it's usually been thousandths of a second. And yesterday, Kelvin van der Linde, by 21 thousandths of a second, got the pole position away from Max Gotts. There he is, the championship leader. And just to give you a benchmark time, yesterday's pole time, 1:27.054. Abt Sportsline in good spirits, as they would be after a 1-2 finish yesterday. First team to achieve that so far this season. So Liam Lawson sets the first time, but they're not quick times yet. 1:34.5. So we're still looking to be going 6 or 7 seconds a lap quicker than that on this next lap or two. The times should start to come down. So Kelvin van der Linde quickest yesterday, Max Gotts was second, Marco Vittman was third. You get success ballast in the race, which switches now to the top 3 from the previous race. So Kelvin van der Linde will have a heavier car in the race than he had yesterday. He started yesterday's race with 15 kilograms of success ballast on board. He'll add 10 because of the race win yesterday. He'll have 25 kilograms on board. Mike Rockenfeller will have 18 and Alex Albon will have 15 kilograms on board, but they don't carry that in qualifying. So it's only for the race that weight is added on. So everybody equal for this one. Liam Lawson, not surprisingly, who's at the head of the field, getting the purple sector times, but that's only because we haven't had a massively quick lap yet. Lucas Auer's best lap of the session so far is a 1:31, but we're looking at getting in, as I say, to the low 1:27s. Might be a little bit slower today, might be a little bit quicker, we'll find out. A bit of a slide there from Liam as he gets the car slightly out of shape coming out of the final chicane at Jackie X Bocht, and through he comes. The time that he sets is enough to take him to the top briefly, but Daniel Hungadea now goes slightly quicker. And Daniel, remember, has got his 10-place grid penalty, but a 1:27.7 for Hungadea. Alex Albon's done a 1:27.9. Liam Lawson's time, which was initially the best, because his first to cross the line was a 1:28.3. So 1:27.7 for Daniel Hungadea is a pretty good time. It's, I'm sure, going to be beaten in this session. It's not bad as Mike Rockenfeller comes in. Quick stop. Quick practice pit stop, almost that. And with 14.5 minutes to go, Mike goes back out onto the circuit. So all Daniel Hungadea can do here is qualify on pole and then suck up this 10-place grid penalty from yesterday's incident, be 10th on the grid, which wouldn't be a total disaster. Kelvin van der Linde top of the times now, 1:27.048 seconds. He's just going through turn 2. So that now puts him at 7/10 clear of Hungadea, and that's a really good lap early on. We could have a quicker track here, couldn't we? Because of the slightly cooler conditions and the fact there's a lot more rubber, a lot more grip on the circuit. Perhaps yesterday, obviously, it was drying and drying and drying. It was dry for the second half of the session, but there wasn't much rubber down. So we could well get into the 1:26s looking at that. A 1:27.048 is already 6 thousandths of a second quicker than yesterday's pole position time. Muller's gone second, and he was showing good times in free practice on Friday, in both dry and damp and wet conditions. Replay of running wide there, the number 8 Mercedes of Daniel Hungadea, just kissing the gravel with the left Michelin tyres, but getting away with it. Coming out of turn 4 as they head back along the back straight parallel to the start-finish straight behind the paddock, which is in the centre of those two straights. Anton Abrel's on for a personal best here. We've got Hungadea second, but with this grid penalty looming. Muller third, Lawson fourth, Max Berg in fifth, Alex Albon sixth, but he's gone into the pits now. And no absolute best sector times, but lots of personal best sector times being set. Looks like a decent lap this from Max Gotts. Where is it going to put him in the order of things? Potentially up in the top 5 or 6, I would say, if he holds it together through the last sector. Van der Linde's just come into the pits, so it's a bit less frantic on track than it was yesterday when they were hardly in the pits and mostly on the circuit. Max Gotts goes through, and that puts him in 9th place. So 5 positions gained, but quite what he would have hoped. 5th place is now shown, so up to 5th he comes as the timing screen updates. So that was a 1:27.844. He's about 8/10 of a second away from the best time set by Van der Linde, who's miles clear at the moment. He's 4/10 up. If he were to stay 4/10 of a second up, that would be the biggest gap that we've had in qualifying so far this season, having had the smallest gap yesterday. So in the midway stage, as is traditional, a bit more like a traditional qualifying session this, where they do a few laps, come in, check the cars over and go out again for the final 10 minutes or so. Yesterday it wasn't quite like this because they're all desperate to get out on the track, knowing that it was getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Biggest gap we've had in qualifying so far was when Philip Ellis got pole position in race 2, or for race 2 at the Lausitz by 0.394 seconds. So Van der Linde top, Hungadea second, but with a 10th place grid penalty looming. Muller third, so he'd been promoted onto the front row of the grid. Lawson fourth, Gotts fifth, that effort just before he came in. Max Berg going well in 6th place. He stayed out for a very long time yesterday. As you see, some smoking and very hot brakes on the Mercedes of Daniel Hungadea. We've got Alex Albon 7th at the moment, Vincent Abrel in 8th, Marco Vittman, who qualified 3rd yesterday. At the moment, he's in 9th place. Lucas Auer rounding out the top 10. And there another look at that slightly errant moment for the Spaniard, Daniel Hungadea, ex-European Formula 3 champion. And back into the DTM for the first time since 2019, where he raced for that one season that we had the Aston Martin in the DTM back in the Class 1 era. Right, fresh Michelin's going on to Kelvin van der Linde's car, as you might expect. And can he get into the 1:26s? Can he be the first driver to do that this weekend? As his brother getting on, Sheldon van der Linde. He picked up a 5-second penalty yesterday for the second time in 3 races that Sheldon's picked up a penalty. First one was for a pit lane infringement. Yesterday was for a out of position at the start infringement, and he's in 12th place currently. You've got the top 7 within a second of each other, but there are quite big gaps further back, which is unusual. Normally we see in the DTM probably the top 15 or 16 within a second of the pole time. So I think there's more to come from drivers like Marco Vittman, who's 1.3 seconds off the pace at the moment. Esteban Moot is 1.5 seconds off the pace, and he's been a very good qualifier so far this season.
Christopher, we do quarter turn up more at the rear. Quarter turn up more at the rear. That's what I said.
But it's also a bit of oversteer and first sector, so I don't know. Maybe we keep it.
Quarter down, Christopher, quarter down. Okay.
Make some adjustments to the rear of Max Gotz's car then. Bit of oversteer, he said, so he's turning into the corner. The back end is snapping out a bit.
Keep
the
on
nose
the
is a
base.
bit pointy.
We do the base change, base change. So,
brand new Michelin slick tyres go on.
It is with all tires than this carry, but let's see.
So limited amount of time to be able to change things, but they can make these slight tweaks. Max Gott's feeling...
who's quickest work? 2 tires.
that it's required to make some changes. Now, after the first round of DTM, and the first round that you participate in, for every event in the DTM, you only get 3 sets of new Michelin tyres. They have to make 3 sets of tyres last throughout the course of the whole weekend, through free practice, through qualifying 1, qualifying 2, and both races. You can use older tyres in free practice, but in terms of new sets of tyres, that's all you get, 3. So you don't get a set of new tyres for every single session. And that's part of how you have to manage things. Now, the rain will have saved some of the tyre wear on Friday, and particularly in that second free practice session, but it's something they need to bear in mind. In your first weekend in DTM, you do get 5 sets of new tyres, and that will apply to Christian Kleen, who's making his debut this weekend. But for everybody else, it's 3 sets of Michelins. We get cars heading back out onto the circuit then. Liam Lawson only qualified 10th yesterday. He's 4th at the moment. He's half a second adrift. However, he's only got to find a 10.5 to get onto the front row of the grid, potentially. In fact, he only needs to get past Nico Muller to get onto the front row of the grid because of this penalty for Daniel Hunkadea. And currently, what's he, 86 thousandths of a second behind. You can see the gap's pretty tight from Hunkadea back to Lawson. But it's a bit more spread out further back, which is unusual. Timo Glock last at the moment. Mike Rockenfeller hasn't put a proper lap time in either. Neither of them have had a real run at this yet. 9 and 17 seconds off the pace at the moment. There's Esme Hawke, who got a best result so far in 13th place yesterday. That was despite a spin at the start of the race. She had a 14th previously at Monza, but she finished 13th in the race yesterday. So it was a good comeback drive from Esme, who had the off at the start of the race, but there was no damage to the car. And she's doing a very good job. Watched her race for a couple of seasons on the support build to the British Touring Car Championship, where she's been one of the leading lights in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. She's a really good racer as well. She's pulled off some great overtakes, and it's a very different challenge for her. She hasn't had any prep time coming into the season, has far fewer tests of the car than lots of other drivers because of the late deal that she made. But the British driver definitely one to watch. Experience racing in the W Series as well, that inaugural season of single-seater championship back in 2019, which was the one and only time she would have raced here at Zolder. So Esme doing a very strong job yesterday. Can she get up into the points today? The car is certainly capable of it. The team is capable of it. It's just a case of her starting to click with it a bit more now, which is definitely happening. Esteban Moot, teammates, a much younger driver, not much younger, but he's a younger driver. However, he has got more GT-type experience. So there is Esme. At the moment, her best laps are 1:30.299. How did she get on in terms of lap times yesterday in qualifying? Her best time yesterday, it would have been quicker than that, wouldn't it? It was a 1:28.4, yeah. So there's more to come from Esme. She's already on 2 personal best sector times. We're about to see her best lap of the session. Esme comes through 1:28.279. That is more like it. That puts her into the top 10. So excellent effort from Esme in the rocket-backed car. And the T3 Motorsport team, these 2 very talented drivers, will be pretty pleased with that. Maybe there's some more to come. Bit of housekeeping to be done in the pit lane. That's probably from Daniel Angadea's car, I imagine, after that brief run through the gravel trap. We've got Dev Gore on a personal best lap time here in the Team Rosberg Audi. Led the race yesterday because he was one of the last to make a pit stop, and that's enough to go 16th. So 16th, which is where he already was, but it's a much better lap time, 1:29.740. So the gaps from the second half of the field to the top half of the field starting to come down, and they need to, because we're into, what, the final 4.5 minutes of the session now. So still the time to beat, 1:27.048 from Kelvin van der Linde, on board with the number 51 Audi of Nico Müller. Now racing for Team Rosberg, having raced for the last few seasons for Team AB Sportsline. Personal best through the first sector for him, the 28.175. That's a pretty strong first sector. We've seen some high 27s in that first sector. I think 27.7 was the best that we saw. Esme Hawkey about to improve again as well, and she could get herself into the top 8 here, perhaps ahead of Vincent Abril. Waits for a line. Over the line she goes, and that's 7th. Brilliant effort from Esme. So that's terrific stuff. Esme Hawkey with her best lap of the session, and Lucas Auer now does the absolute best first sector time with a 27.9. So that is a 10th up, maybe, just about a 10th up on Kelvin van der Linde's best first sector time from earlier on. So Lukey on a charge here in the number 22 Team Winwood Mercedes. Consistent point scorer so far this season. The Austrian has done a personal best in Sector 2 as well. Keeping an eye on the timing screen to see if there's any more changes. Muller's gone top of the times with 1:27.029 by 19 thousandths of a second. Marco Vittman has gone absolute best in Sector 2. There are going to be more changes here. Lucas Auer and Marco Vittman might be about to get ahead of Muller and van der Linde at the top of the times, but they've got time to respond. Let's see what Lucas's time is like. 1:26.901, first driver to break that barrier. So Lucas Auer, 1:26.9, but Marco Vittman in the BMW is going to be close to that time as well as he comes over the line. Not quite there. Yes, he is. 1:26.687. So he's done it by 2/10, in fact. Auer in second, Muller in third now, and Kelvin van der Linde needs to respond. He's in 4th place currently. Vincent Abril has done the absolute best first sector time, and we've got one of the Rover Racing BMWs stopped out on circuit as well. But here's the driver that's trying to get to the top of the times. It's Timo Glock. So Timo Glock stops on circuit and brings about the red flag with just over 2 minutes to go, and that's going to ruin Vincent Abril's chance of getting through and improving. So it looks like the car's just stopped rather than he's had an off. Having a look underneath the car, inspection time for Timo. What's happening? Just not working out for him this weekend, I'm afraid. Let's having a look at the rear of the car. So quite whether that's suspension related or what, I don't know. But it's odd that he's looking under the car if it was a power related or electrical related issue. So a long walk back to the pits for Timo, I'm afraid. He stopped up at turn 8. So he's about as far away as he could be, really, from the pit lane. Hopefully somebody will give him a lift back. We'll have to go and recover that car. And it looks like that will be it. No restart. It says on the timing screen from the message from race control, so we're not going to get the session restarted, which makes sense given we only had 2.5 minutes left. That'll be frustrating for Vincent Abril, because he's going to start 14th, but he was on a really good lap when that happened. Absolute best first sector time, but it won't count, and it will be Marco Vittman that gets pole position. Well, the qualifying of the BMW has been a bit suspect up until now.
Second lap was better because I had less understeer in the car, but generally the difference quite nice. Obviously no idea where we are with our lap time at the moment.
P1, baby, P1.
So Marco Vittman gets pole position as Timo Glock takes the seat at the marshal post. and has a think about life and why things are not going his way here at Zolder. Marco Vittman, that's going to be his first pole position since Brands Hatch 2019. 2 years since Marco Vittman was on pole position, but he's done it here with an excellent lap, 126.687. Who knows if it would have got bettered or not. Doesn't matter, he's on pole for this afternoon's race. And that will be his 15th career pole in the DTM. Right, this might unearth some answers.
Got no drive.
Got no drive, he says.
Whatever it is, no idea.
So that was the moment that Timo stopped on circuit. Got no idea what it is.
It's just rolling, so there's no power forward anymore, question? No power anymore.
Poor Timo. He's going to start, well, at the back of the field. 19th instead of 20 because Arjun Mining, as I said at the start of the session, he's out for the day. They can't fix his car. Didn't look terribly bad, did it? The damage to Arjun's car yesterday. But there's obviously something underneath the skin, perhaps chassis related, that's put him out. So he'll be 19th on the grid instead of 20th. But at the opposite end of the grid, a very happy Marco Vittman, who's been brilliant in the races as ever. Had to drive a slightly off-colour BMW last season as well. But he has struggled with the car in qualifying up until this weekend. Third yesterday, pole position today. And it wasn't necessarily a circuit where they were expecting the BMW, which is quite a big, wide, heavy car on this narrow circuit, to be flying. But the Rover Racing squad have done a tremendous job. Marco always drives to the limit, pushes hard. And the 2014, 2016 DTM champion, it is very good to see him back up there fighting.
That's a nice surprise or not?
Huh? I'm fucking surprised. I had no radio.
No, I know.
Fuck, the car was mega.
Well done, man.
I would have improved my...
So Marco Vittman by 0.2 of a second, pole position. Lucas Auer second. He was only 55 thousandths of a second clear of Mike Rockenfeller, who we didn't talk much about in that session. He wasn't really involved in the fight up until the second half of proceedings, but he got another good lap in. Mike, third place. He's qualifying really well at the moment. Kelvin van der Linde, fourth. He'll be okay with that. I think the championship leader, Daniel Hunkadea, qualifying fifth, but he gets a 10-place grid penalty. So Muller will start the race fifth. Lawson will start the race in sixth. Clean in seventh. Christian Clean, didn't really see him in that qualifying session, but that's a really solid job from the ex-Grand Prix racer aboard the McLaren. The team's debut this weekend, the driver's debut in DTM. He qualifies eighth. He's going to be seventh on the grid after that penalty for Hunkadea as well. And he'll be followed by Gotts. Qualifies 9th, will start 8th. Book qualifies 10th, will start 9th. And Esme Hawkey qualifies 11th. That's her best qualifying so far. And she'll also be in the top 10 on the grid for the race in the T3 Motorsport Lamborghini. Excellent drive from Esme. Put in a couple of really good laps in the second half of that session. Alex Albon would be disappointed. He was up there in the first half of the session, but maybe he was one of the drivers that wanted that last few minutes of the session to improve. There will be a few stories like that. I was about to get a good lap, but I didn't because of the red flags. That's going to be the case maybe for Alex, definitely for Vincent Abril, perhaps for Esteban Musa as well, who's back in 15th place. Sheldon van der Linde only in 16th position. So Marco Vittman, absolutely delighted with that. They're on genuine pace. That's the quickest lap of the weekend by some distance. So 126.687. Track conditions good. 0.4 of a second quicker than yesterday's pole time. Lucas Auer will also be delighted with his best qualifying of the season so far. He'll start in second place. And Mike Rockenfeller up there again. He's worked really hard to get himself to pace in qualifying. We know his race pace is good, but Mike Rockenfeller there with another really strong performance to get himself up on the pace. He was on the front, or potentially on the front row of the grid for much of the first qualifying session. He slipped back to 6th in the end, but only by a few fractions of a second. Couldn't get his lap in because of traffic. Otherwise, he might have been higher up yesterday as well. So third is matching his best qualifying of the season so far. Right, let's hear from some of the drivers after what was a very good session down with Verena.
Auer, who's starting in P2. Luki, in Monza, you're also starting in P2, but today what can you do from P2, do you think, in the race?
Well, we will see. I need a good start. I will try to attack Marco straight away.
but it's difficult to overtake here, as we saw yesterday. And I think Marco is really strong. So, but anyway, qualifying was good, and the race, we will see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for the moment. Back to you.
Thanks, Verena. Yeah, Lucas Sauer, one of the most likeable drivers on the grid. Really nice chap is Lucas, and good to see him going well. He has matched his best qualifying of the year so far. He was second in the very first session at Monza on a weekend where he sat out a lot of the free practice times on the Friday. It was a very hot weekend in Italy to start the campaign for 2021, but another very strong drive from him, and I think another very happy driver now speaking to Verena down in the pit lane.
Oh, I'm sure this man is pretty happy. Mike Rockenfeller, there we go, I'm sorry. Yeah, and starting in P3, obviously that's it has potential, especially since yesterday you had a second place in the race. So do you think you can maybe aim for second place or maybe even a win today?
For sure we aim for it, that's clear. I think today it's going to be a tough day. The car will be in total 38 kilos heavier than yesterday, so it's for sure more tricky. But you know, it's the part of the game, and we try very hard. And first of all, quali was crucial. Now let's see, we try our best to have a good race and score some points for the championship.
We know Zolder is tricky, and especially the conditions today are pretty different in regards to the weather, I think. I mean, looking up in the sky, I don't know what your radar says, but it might be raining, I don't know. But what are you expecting for the race here?
I didn't check. I think the guy said it should be dry, but you know, never know here in Belgium. I think it's a lovely place for sure. In the dry, overtaking is really difficult. Even in the wet, I think it's not that easy here. So, like I said, clean start. Hopefully, clear weather conditions. Let's say, you know, clear dry or clear wet. I'm sure for the fans, the racing gets a bit more interesting if there's some mixed conditions. As a driver, you prefer to have a clear weather.
All right. Thank you so much. Best of luck later on for the race.
Verena.
Back to you.
Thanks very much. Good to hear from Mike. He'll be starting his 195th DTM race this afternoon and looking for his first win for a couple of years as well. His last victory came at Assen in 2019. There's Timo Glock's car being brought back. Interested to hear Mike say we're 38 kilograms heavier than we were yesterday as well. Now, we know he's got 18 kilograms of success ballast, but it sounds like the balance of performance has changed. They altered this during the course of the weekend, and it sounds very much like they've added 20 kilograms to the two Audis of Kelvin van der Linde and Mike Rockenfeller. So a heavier car, but qualifying well. It's the German driver Marco Vittman on pole position, though. That's it from the comms box. Looking forward to your company for this afternoon's race, but let's hand back now to Verena.
And here's the man who's starting in pole position, Marco Vittman. Marco, it's your first pole this season, and I think it's your 15th all-in-all in your DTM career, so you can add that on the list as well. What's your feeling for the race? I mean, obviously Zolder is a tricky track, but starting from P1 is always good.
It's definitely good, especially here in Zolder, where overtaking is pretty difficult. It's the best spot, and I'm super happy, you know. The team worked hard overnight, as we had some damage yesterday night from the race, or after the race. So they had to work really long till the night, and so therefore the pole position tastes even sweeter, to be honest. Super happy with that. The car is amazing the whole weekend. The balance is spot on. They did just an amazing job so far, and yeah, obviously now for the race, trying our best, trying to achieve our first podium this year. That would be great.
That would be great indeed. And in regards to the track, I mean, we're always saying Zolder is tricky. What would you say, apart from obviously having a good start, that's the most crucial thing, what would you say is the most tricky part about Zolder?
I think at the end it's pretty much the strategy to stop at the right lap, really. It's always tricky if you do an undercut or an overrun. As we have seen, both strategies are working from yesterday. So it's hard to judge, especially if you're the leader. You obviously don't want to do the wrong call. But let's see. I think we are in a good position, and I'm really looking forward to the race.
So are we. Thank you so much, Marco. And now that's it from us. See you later for the race. Here are the highlights. Enjoy. See you later.